Back-to-back defeats to start the season for Derby County, for Oxford United, and for Blackburn Rovers. The big question, I think, is which of those three sides are the teams to be worried about in terms of the way that they've started the season results-wise, and which of them have shown enough in the way of performances to suggest they'll climb the table. That's what we're here to discuss on this Championship podcast. We've got three guests on this evening. And looking at which teams are going to be in the relegation dogfight. So all three of these teams are going to want to pick up, and we're going to discuss whether they can do that. Before we get stuck in, if you can get subscribed to us, if you like what we're doing here, you could do us a massive favour by getting subscribed to us on YouTube and on Spotify. So delighted to be joined by Jack Bryan from the Rams Review podcast on Derby County. Jack, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. Just wondering, how worried are you by the first two defeats for the Rams?
Not overly so, mate. And I'll tell you why by reading off the injury list, if you like, because this is the kind of saving grace at the moment, I think. So Corey Blackett-Taylor, Curtis Nelson, Lars Jorgen Salverson, Owen Beck, Patrick Adjumang, and Sondre Langas. Plus you've got Bobby Clark, who isn't match fit, and Ryan Brewster and Kane Wilson, who we've seen training at the open training session at Pride Park today, but are yet to feature. So it's not been pretty. 8 goals conceded in 2 games. They have scored 4, though, and considering the lack of fit forward options, that's really been a bit of a surprise. But I think there is a sense that this team is yet to come together with further additions expected as well. So hopefully, from a Derby perspective, it's teething issues.
Yeah, because I think normally a John Eustace team, we wouldn't expect them to be quite as far off it as they were at Stoke on the opening day, and to be quite as vulnerable defensively as they were against Coventry on Saturday. So do you think, I'd love to hear from you, Jack, what the timescales are on some of those players returning?
So a fair few of them should be back straight after the international break. So, you would hope Ryan Brewster, that's just a case of getting up to fitness. He didn't have a pre-season. Kane Wilson, that's certainly the timeline. Corey Blackett-Taylor might be later in September because that was about 6 weeks. Owen Beck's unknown. Curtis Nelson's an ACL from January, and the likes of Sondre Langas as well. Hopefully that will be kind of end of September. If you remember, he played the final 2 months of the season on a torn meniscus before having surgery. So a fair few of them are accumulators from last year or arrived with niggling issues that the club wanted to sort out, take Patrick Adjumang's hernia. But hopefully a fair few of these players will be back after the international break. I mean, in his first pre-match press conference ahead of the opening day, John Eustace didn't kind of reject the idea from BBC Radio Derby that the kind of international break would represent a kind of another pre-season for the club and some of these players. So I think it might be a case of muddling through these next couple of games and then that international break's kind of a reset, and hopefully the majority of those players are back by then. That seems to be the messaging at the moment. But it is striking that in every post-match interview we are hearing about the importance of these games for just getting minutes in the legs and for fitness. Because if you think about the spread of these goals, 5 of the 8 goals have come in short periods after the 70th minute. So the triple salvo, if that's a thing, on Saturday, 72nd minute, 75th minute, 79th minute. And John Eustace admitted that he didn't have the strength on his bench to make the changes that he wanted to at that point due to fitness, with players that were already featuring flagging a little bit. And then the opening day, of course, as well, that came in, the 95th and 99th minutes after a late switch to a back three. So, these could be TV issues, it could be fitness. If it's systemic, then they'll hope that they can sort it out. I mean, it's a complete departure from what we saw at the end of last season, of course. You think back to the visit of Coventry to Pride Park in March, that was all about Derby showing their defensive credentials, wasn't it? Nat Phillips, Matt Clark, Sondre Langas were rock solid that night, and this was anything but. I think there will also be questions around the goalkeeper, given Josh Vickers' performance, keeping the Rows in the game at West Brom in midweek last week, before, of course, shootout heroics. But yeah, I think once Jesus gets his wingers that he wants, and he can go back to the 4-2-3-1, because that was a factor in his decision to play a 3-5-2 on Saturday, not having those wingers. Maybe they look a different side again as well. There's so many things up in the air at the moment. It's really difficult to call. I think the message is certainly one of the kind of patience required at the moment.
Certainly is. I'm wondering, Jack, how many of those players on that list of injuries that injured players you gave me at the beginning, how many of those do you think would go straight into the best 11 if you could guarantee them, full fitness?
Yes. So I reckon, looking at the side that played on Saturday, I think you've got probably 5 or 6 outfield players that go straight in. So Sondre Langas goes in based on his performance last year. Kane Wilson goes in at right back at the moment because Eustace Wallett's an attacking right back, and Ryan Diamby isn't that. Owen Beck would probably go in at left back over a Callum Elder or a Craig Forsyth. And then Corey Blake-Taylor starts on the left at the moment based on his pre-season form. And I think there's even an argument for someone like Patrick Agyemang, depending on how they want to set up, or Ryan Brewster would probably get the nod. Either him or Bobby Clark at full fitness should hopefully get the nod in that 3 behind the striker that might be quite fluid, we expect. And then, as I say, wingers, more out-and-out wingers to come. Koki Sato, if that's how you say it.
Yes.
The Japanese lad that was at QPR last year. Derby is supposedly front runners there. Somebody like that would definitely get into the side, because as I say, at the moment, the only kind of winger that was fit was Hayden Jackson on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I look at the 11 here, Jack, I would probably say I actually think I prefer Ryan Niambe as an outside centre half to as a wing back. And so I definitely agree with you. Kane Wilson coming in will make a huge difference. I also don't know that Caden Jackson's necessarily starting quality at Championship level. Do I think he can be a useful squad player? Maybe, because he is a real athlete and he's versatile as well. But I think I would want Patrick Agyemang and the quality that he can bring as a Gold Cup finalist this year. I'd want him starting up top with Carlton Morris.
Yeah, 100%. I think Caden Jackson's profile points to being an impact sub, really, doesn't it? Just that sheer pace and that power with some of those runs. He could be a problem off the bench with tired defences. If Derby were coming up against someone like him at the moment, they would have their work cut out, because by 70-odd minutes, the Derby defence is the definition of a tired defence, seemingly. But yeah, no, I think there's going to be a fair few changes, a fair few players to come in, and that is a key factor at the moment in terms of not panicking. If it continues like this for the next few weeks, maybe things start to change. But I think the faith will be kept in John Eustace. Obviously the next 2 games aren't easy either. Bristol City at home, beating playoff semi-finalists last season, and then recently relegated Ipswich. So a pointless August doesn't seem improbable, unfortunately, for Derby. But again, it's a 46-game season, as John Eustace was keen to point out. And how many times have we seen teams recover? Even last season, think about someone like Portsmouth, who didn't have that many points in the first couple of months. Colby Bishop came back, they looked a different side, and they ended up only 4 points off that top half. So getting towards somewhere like the 14th you predicted, Gab, isn't impossible. This is very early in the season, and
that's 2 games in.
Yeah,
you could win 2 games, and all of a sudden the picture completely changes. So it's you've got to be very open-minded, I think, at this stage. Dion Sanderson, Jack. I think he's got some good core ingredients in that he's pretty strong, he's quick, and I think he's good on the ball. However, I do feel with Dion Sanderson sometimes he kind of undermines a lot of that because he can be quite a rash defender and doesn't always bring that sort of assurance that you'd want. So for me, Sondre Langas walks straight in really.
Yeah, well, to be honest, mate, he probably hobbles in as well, based on the months with the torn meniscus and how good he still was then. So, yeah, I mean, Dion Sanderson, so obviously someone John Eustace knows and trusts very much. That's been a factor in this signing. I think on Saturday he was tasked with marking Ephraim Mason Clark for large parts of the game. At times he was maybe too tight to him, and that was a bit of a thankless task. Um, but of course, he gave away that penalty. Also, on the opening day, I alluded to that switch to a back three that came when he came on in the 94th minute. And then, yeah, so really, he's one who's not maybe won over supporters yet. But again, it's so early. He's probably not had much of a pre-season, from what I understand. Kind of been thrown in. But to be fair, as we say, at the strongest this Derby squad can be, he probably isn't a starter. He's probably there as someone John Eustace knows and trusts as a good character who will be happy to play a part in the squad. I think that's probably what John Eustace envisages there. Alongside, there's a few players like that. Andy Byron and Danny Bart, who he's brought in, having had the Blackburn as well, probably in that similar category. And I think that is a hallmark of a John Eustace team to an extent, having that trusted brigade ready to step in.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see Carlton Morris be 2-2 at this stage. Is there the hope that he can catch fire like he did in the 22-23 season with Luton Town?
Yeah, well, the guy's clearly got quality and pedigree that Derby haven't had in a striker for a while. You think a guy who, 2 years ago was hitting double digits in the Premier League, had that 20-goal season. Last year didn't really work out for him, but there's all sorts of factors behind that. I think what he's going to bring to the team is more than just goals. Obviously, 2-2, he took his one chance at Stoke and they converted from a spot at home to Coventry. But it's his link-up play, his hold-up play, and kind of getting the best out of the team as a physical presence as well. Will Derby be hoping he can get 20-odd goals? Yes. We know no one really did that last season in the Championship. And it's, as I say, it's about so much more than that. If he could do that, Derby would be in a great position. But I think really it might be about kind of more underlying numbers, thinking about things like shot creating actions, and if he can help, build these Derby attacks, as well as kind of offering that finishing touch as well. I think John Eustace, in signing so many strikers on top of Lars Jørgen Salverson, who was already in the building, Morris, Adjumang, and then Brewster and Byron, who can also be those kind of shadow striker types or play up front. I think he's looking for the goals to be spread around, but as it stands, Carlton Morris looks lethal when that chance comes to him, and that can only be a good thing.
Certainly can. I enjoyed the elder wand of a left foot. Harry Potter reference. It was a lovely delivery, wasn't it, for one of the goals, for a set piece, Callum Elder. Do you think he can provide some good deliveries this season?
Hopefully, that sort of free kick seems to be something that's been worked on as well, because Joe Ward did what was effectively a mirror image to take West Brom to penalties in the Carabao Cup on Tuesday night as well. Honestly, I don't quite know what the odds of that are, because he's basically the same position on the opposite flank. And then, stronger foot, which is the opposite side to the flank, curls it into that far top corner. Great strike, as you say, wonderful left foot. And hopefully that can continue. If he can stay fit, he'll be an asset. Fitness has been a concern. I think Owen Beck will be the starting left back certainly, but Callum Elder, another good option in the squad, who over last season as well always seemed to kind of turn up when called upon, as long as he was fit to do just that. So hopefully some good deliveries, especially with the likes of Carlton Morris to get on the end of them, as well as some very big aerially dominant centre halves as well from set pieces, the likes of Matt Clark, Danny Bart, and so on.
Yeah. Yeah, he's certainly got that aerial prowess. David Ozo, Jack, is somebody who you didn't see as much as you wanted of last season due to injury, but he's returned on loan from Crystal Palace. How's he started his the second part of his Rams tenure?
He started well. He looked all right when he came on at Stoke. That was a bit of a thankless task when you're playing in a team with 30% of the ball who are kind of hoofing it over the midfield, to be honest. But against West Brom in the League Cup, a very good performance from the Palace man. He kind of controlled that midfield, looked comfortable stepping back into that back three at times. Well, it's four of that three with the two centre backs. Sorry, as we've seen John Eustace want to do that bit of a quarterback role, but also in making some of those runs forward as well. So really well rounded. I wrote it the other week. The thing with David Ozo is he is as graceful as he is powerful. He's great off the ball, but also carries it really well.
Yes. Yeah, I
And
agree.
that's a huge thing for a Derby team who at times struggled to progress the ball up the pitch last season. So I think he's going to have a great year if he can stay fit. Even last season, when he was fit, he looked a cut above, and you thought, yeah, this guy needs one championship season, and then he'll probably be in that Palace squad in the Premier League. I mean, if he could have a top year this year, then there will be a birth, you would imagine, at Crystal Palace, vacated by Adam Wharton. And based on his quality, I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the squad, but it is all about that fitness. And that is the big question with David Ozo. So hopefully for his sake, because he seems like a top lad who's, really talented, really driven, he can just stay fit. And yeah, he is going to be a huge part of that Derby midfield this season. So yeah, decent start for him. I think, yeah, no one covered themselves in glory defensively on Saturday. But, when you concede 5 in a league game for the first time in nearly 15 years, that's a fairly obvious statement, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the the Derby County teams from 15 odd years ago would probably make me shudder a little bit. So hopefully that's not a permanent return to those days, but I don't think it is because I don't actually think there's loads of players in Saturday's 11 who you would say would get into Derby's best 11. I mean, for me, I would go with Zetterstrom as a definite. I would go with Matt Clark, David Ozo, Ryan Nyambe, but maybe in a different position, Ebo Adams and Carlton Morris. Are we looking at Ebo Adams as a star player for Derby this season, like he was last year?
It depends how John Eustace wants to play. I think for teams that have the ball, that he's going to be key. If Derby are playing, low possession football, trying to break forward, trying to press high, he's going to be crucial. If Derby want to try and play a bit more, then does Ebo Adams have that ability? And it's about the balance of that midfield to kind of cover for his gaps in his technical game, perhaps. He does more than make up for his physical attributes, let's face it. It's just about specific roles. I think, a lot of fans have questioned this sort of Adams in the 10 high press situation. As I say, I think in terms of leading that high press, joining Carlton Morris up front and using that work rate to win the ball and then funnel it back to, some more creative, deep line midfielders to break lines, that will work. But I do also think we will see him drop into that kind of central midfield role at times as well, with the quality of some of the number 10s that Derby have. It's whether he can have that positional discipline, and that's the rhythm that Derby get into, especially if, say, Lewis Travis was signed, as was potentially rumoured, or someone of that profile to play next to David Ozo. Are they more natural in that with a more technical 10 ahead? Who knows? But as it stands in the current squad, I mean, Ebo Adams is an exceptional athlete again, who gives everything for Derby every time he steps on the pitch. And again, out of possession, are there many better in the league at what to do with him based on his stats last year? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that it doesn't matter as much his technical limitations the further up the pitch he is, because if he's big on that pressing role, a lot of the time he won't necessarily, if he contributes to winning the ball, he won't necessarily get involved with the link-up play because he can just press up right with and carry on the run almost and press up right with the forwards, and actually the ones getting on the ball will be the Ozo, will be the Thompson, if you like. And so I think Adams can be almost like a decoy who occupies defenders because of that athleticism, and that's how I would see him fitting in. But again, he's going to suit a role where you don't have as much of the ball, but I think that suits a Eustace system quite nicely. So Jack, it's been a pleasure to have you on. You still reasonably confident for the rest of the season then?
I'm optimistic that I think it'll be less nerve-wracking than last season. That's kind of my goal. I think, do you know what? If they could be, I said it weeks ago, be safe on the final day so I can kind of relax this time. That'd be a luxury for me based on the last few years for Derby County.
Yeah.
I would say the right additions and things clicking, pushing towards that top half, given Eustace's record, isn't implausible. I think it's plausible that they'll have a bit of a run at some point, but it's just how things click together. And really, this is about the first steps to a long-term project and kind of laying a foundation. So even if the start is slow now, just getting that bit of stability and, as I say, just showing some green shoots for the longer term. That's the target for Derby County for me this year.
Absolutely. Jack, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining us from the Rams Review.
Thank you, mate.
Top stuff. Delighted to be joined now by Alfie Wilson of the Yellow Army, Oxford United. Good evening, Alfie. Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah, just while Alfie's doing that, I think what I'm curious about with Oxford United is they've carried a set-piece threat in that 3-2 loss at Hull City last time out, but I would like to see them start to create a few more chances in open play. I know Rowett's played 2 up top. I don't think it's something he typically likes to do, and I think he might do something different if Oxford have a creative 10. Are you there, Alfie? Oh no, I still can't hear you. You might need to have another fiddle with the settings. It might sometimes the headphones can. So if the worst comes to the worst, you might want to try without the headphones. Okay, he's trying. Okay. Yeah, sorry. Have you tried without the headphones? Have you pulled them out? Okay, it's not working. Okay. This is like playing charades. This. Yeah, I think Gary Rowett's teams typically sometimes he's liked 4-2-3-1, especially at Birmingham City where he had Andrew Shinney in the 10. I think he likes some form of security. I would suspect that playing with 2 forwards rather than 1 striker and a number 10 is kind of a response to circumstance. And I think that if there was 1 more creative 10 in there, I think he'd be playing 4-2-3-1 or a slightly different system. I mean, I do think there's some decent players in there. Lankshire's highly rated at Spurs. Harris has had 1 or 2 purple patches at this level. Zach Mills, talented winger. Cameron Brannigan, can be a lovely technician, can't he? Of Liverpool pedigree, and he's been a real stalwart for Oxford United. And Tyler Goodrum, supposedly the most exciting prospect to come from their academy. But I did feel watching the highlights in their 3-2 loss at Hull that they were missing that little bit of athleticism and aggression against the ball. They're missing a sort of physical ball winner to my eyes. Whether Will Volks, he's a bit more on the experience end of the spectrum, but I'd be looking for somebody of a slightly different profile. And again, yeah, they look a few short, don't they, Oxford United? I would maybe question whether somebody like Greg Lee, who is an athlete, but maybe I wouldn't consider him to be championship caliber. Hello?
Hello, I'm so sorry about that. I'm 90% sure that's worked. I think it was like I don't know, like maybe it was a Chrome permissions thing or something.
Oh, don't worry.
Sorry, Gab, I missed your spiel over the last what will be 2-3 minutes. But to go back, the thing I was going to pick up on, you mentioned first about Rowett and his kind of general frustrations with how things are going. The thing I'd pick up on the most from that would be transfer dealings, in that I think basically there are still quite a lot of areas of the squad that evidently need reinforcement. In fact, now both in terms of quality and bodies. He's mentioned another centre-back and another centre midfielder. I still think we're a bit light on the wing and in number 10 as well. And I think basically, I think it's probably, links in with our new stadium as well. But I think 2-3 weeks ago, Eric Solskjaer has kind of said that the money's kind of up for the rest of the summer. So these are kind of Rowett's kind of final pleas to the board to try and, raise some funds to be able to add a couple more quality additions in before the window closes. Because I'm sure that, come September, he'll, do what Rowett does and, kind of be happy to work what he's been given, if that makes sense. But yeah, even with all of the guys who are due to come back for us, with De Keersmaker a new signing, Prelets as well, Luke Harris on loan, we're still really, really light. I can kind of see why he's, for the first time as Oxford manager, kind of doing a kind of plea for help.
It's interesting because I did the Sportsman Entitled podcast last week, and we were talking about this with Benjamin Bloom, who's a friend of the podcast, and Ben actually said that Gary Rowett's sort of post-match after the opening day, this was post-Portsmouth, was almost like a message to the board, some of his comments. I actually challenged that at the time because I think Rowett's quite an upfront and honest guy, and he'll say what he means, and you don't really have to worry about the subtext very much with him. But perhaps from what you're saying, there is quite a bit of a degree of messaging, perhaps, and feeling like we have a bit of help here.
I think both things are true.
Right.
I mean, nothing that Rowett has said in any of these post-match interviews have been outrageous by any means. He's not said, and I don't even think he's being crafty or careful with his language either. It's just a pretty fair thing to say, to anyone who can kind of, see a glaringly obvious problem. We are a bit light, and the kind of what was generally considered to think what would happen over the summer, and kind of the general promises that there would be 4 or 5 quality additions made, and there's only been 3. Or to be honest, I'd even probably say only 1, to be honest. In De Keersmaker. I mean, I love the signing of Brodie Spencer, and with Nick Prelets, we'll see what happens with him. I think that's a slightly different case. I think in both of the kind of post-match interviews, the one that you mentioned there on opening day against Portsmouth and the whole one, he's been well-tempered with what he said. It's not he said it in a kind of strop or the board have shafted me.
Of course. That's not his style, is it? Yeah.
No, I think they've just been pretty fair comments of frustration, really. I think obviously, I think for the fan base at large, I think in July and at the start of August, I think this maybe goes for a lot of fan bases. You kind of have that kind of safety net in the back of your brain being oh, it's okay because by the end of August, we'll have made the quality additions we need, or at least, done 60, 70% of them, you'd hope. And it's just checking my computer. Yeah, it's the 18th of August today, Monday the 18th. There's 14, 13 days left of the window. I mean, it's pretty unlikely that we'll kind of have any significant squad changes to what we currently have. And that's definitely a worry.
Have you used up all your loan spots, Alfie? Because I imagine it's going to be difficult to pay transfer fees at this point. So it could be a bit of a loan window if you get anyone, pulling the odd favour and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're currently using 3 of our loan spots at the minute, so there's still room for 2 more. Okay. I guess kind of one of the maybe you're kind of eyeing up reserving one for January. The other issue we have is squad registration, which was already an issue last season. I mean, we got away with something in that we didn't have to register Goodrum last season because he's still counted as like an academy player, so I don't think you had to officially register him. He's having to be registered now. I think Stan Mills has to be registered now as well, actually, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So, I mean, I've only mentioned the kind of incoming stuff. There's still like quite a lot of outgoings or people who I think ideally Rowett would like to, get out of the door before the end of the window. I know he kind of, in an ideal world, likes a tighter squad. Yeah. But with the injuries that we currently have and the kind of more difficulty than we've expected in terms of our outgoings, I think unfortunately for him, he's still having to kind of put into practice quite a lot of pragmatism.
So I had a look at the goals he conceded at Hull, Alfie, and my reading of it was I wouldn't so much blame the individual defenders, but I felt like you're missing that sort of athletic ball winner in front of the defence to sort of break things up. And although Will Vaulks brings experience and championship pedigree, I'm wondering if you're missing somebody of that sort of physical ball winning profile.
Yeah, we absolutely are. I mean, we didn't even really have that last season. I mean, Matos was brought in the second half of last season, but he played a kind of slightly different role to that. He was a bit more further forward and kind of was more of a play linker in terms of how he could kind of hold players off and knit play together. I think, to be honest, a wider issue than kind of the general physicality of our midfield, which hopefully De Kirchmacher would help to change. It looks like he would change. But I mean, Vaulks and Brannigan are both playing on one leg at the minute. And like, Will Vaulks and Cam Brannigan, neither of those players in your head, I'm sure in anyone who's listening to this is head who like kind of, vaguely knows what those guys are about. They're not tackle shirkers. They're 2 midfielders who like to get stuck in.
Yeah.
And they're not at the minute. They're kind of quite understandably playing with a degree of reservation. Both of them, for differing reasons, have had to delay surgery on different issues over the last 6 months. Vaulks basically played through an injury for like the last 2 months of last season. And like, Brannigan is not 100% fit at the minute. But I mean, like, look at kind of the other options we kind of have in midfield, and it's pretty light at the minute. I mean, like, Louis Sibley is, not a player that Rowett kind of wants to use quite evidently. But he's still, making matchday squads. Yeah, but I mean, he's still having to make matchday squads to kind of provide just centre midfield cover, really. So I to be honest, I that would be my main worry, even more than a kind of personnel profile gap that you mentioned there. If you're alluding to, like hopefully us being able to bring in a new 6 who adds a high level of physicality.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it's bad enough at the minute.
When Rat was Birmingham manager, we had a midfielder called Michael Kieftenbeld.
I remember him.
Yeah. Who was like a really destructive midfielder who was like running when he was running. It was like he was on turbocharge, and I think you could do with that somebody like that. Because I do feel like with the way that Rowett's teams play, the good thing is. It's easier to get it right because the system isn't as demanding, and so it's easier to tick over a steady flow of points. So I'm kind of torn because hearing you describe that, where Oxford United are short and Brannigan and Vaulks playing on one leg, and money's run out for the window and all these sorts of things, you think, oh my god. And yet I also feel like Gary Rowett's teams have never lost more than 3 in a row, which, in his 11 years of managing at championship level, which suggests he's very good at stripping things back reorganising teams when he needs to. So
absolutely, and like I think I mentioned like a few weeks ago when we did one of these.
Yes,
I'm confident in a steady accumulation of points this season, or a steadier accumulation of points. And like this isn't even a thing where it's just 2 defeats after 2 games. Like both performances have been bad, but they haven't been hopeless. Like I don't want to like throw a team like under the bus kind of thing, but like for maybe a helpful analogy, like it's not like Rotherham a couple of seasons ago kind of thing, where it's like a club that's like obviously like out of their depth. Like we are in every game that we play, and to be honest, like I mean, we scored a goal from open play on Sunday. That's a rarity for us, like away from home as well. And also got another goal off Will Volks's long throw as well. Nice, so nice to know that that's still working. But it's I think it's kind of, we're a little bit worried about our upcoming fixtures as well. Our next 3 are Birmingham, Coventry and Leicester, which is fairly daunting. So, there's kind of a realistic prospect that we might be on 0 points.
Well, you got Birmingham on Saturday.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if like Rowett might be extra fired up for that. Probably not. I mean, he was managing you not only 18, 20 months ago. I guess not. So that's a worry. But yeah, I mean, I know you had Jack from the Rams Review podcast on, talking just earlier. And I know the kind of general theme of this podcast is like, worry after 2 games. And like, I just want to say to him, like, what are you worried about? You're going to be more than fine. Like, the prospect of Derby, like being anywhere near the relegation zone come the end of the season is like crazy to me. So yeah, important not to overreact. I think a thing that we haven't mentioned in the 10 minutes thus far is that, to be honest, in the long term, the club's had its most important week since 2010.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%. In terms of getting back into the Football League, we are being evicted in 2028, and there is 2028 by the latest, probably 2027. And there's absolutely no room for scope on that. So we were very, very facing the very realistic prospect of homelessness in a 3-year time span. So yeah, the stadium planning permission that's finally been granted by Charles District Council is absolutely massive for the club. And so yeah, it's important to temper the on-pitch negativity to start the season with the biggest amount of off-pitch positivity one could possibly hope for.
Oh, I'm thrilled to hear that, because speaking to Oxford United fans, whenever I've been there, I've definitely got the feeling that the Yellow Army have maybe struggled to embrace the Kassam Stadium as its spiritual home, even though you've had some great memories there, like the promotion under Michael Appleton and under, the one Des Buckingham was at Wembley, but you get what I mean, some great cup memories and all that. But it always feels like the Manor was the spiritual home, whereas now you've got the new ground, you've got an opportunity to really build a legacy.
And it says it all, that like, apart from like Brentford and Brighton, maybe, like you can make a very fair case that like we have been like the best club in English football, or one of the best clubs in English football to support since 2006. So like 80% of our time at Kazan. So we haven't been relegated since 2006. We promoted in 2010. 6 years in League Two, promoted in 2016, 8 years in League One with some near misses under Carl Robinson, promoted in 2024, and then stayed up first season in the Championship. I mean, it's been a pretty good, steady rise all told. And a lot of those League One seasons, and for a chunk of those League Two seasons, were, really enjoyable to watch, for the most part. So, despite, and the cup run, that you mentioned as well, the amount of wonderful cup memories we had under Appleton Robinson as well. Despite all that, the Kassam has never felt like home to us.
Isn't that odd? Yeah.
You know,
but I think it shows that it's things beyond the results. I suppose it's the fact that it's named after somebody who's screwed the club over, the fact that it isn't hugely accessible and feels like it's in the middle of nowhere. And I think fans have kind of just struggled to get on board with it. But I think somewhere that's more accessible and somewhere that has a different association for Oxford United fans, hopefully you can really buy into that as a real, gives you a real sense of identity.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's just very exciting, basically.
Yeah, for sure.
And the only thing is just the final point on the stadium and kind of the overarching topic of today is that there is a little bit of catch-22 because obviously in terms of building the new stadium, it's not just a case of Eric Forhier footing a check for the stadium. Like, we are looking for external investment for it, and obviously that external investment is easier if you're a Championship club and not a League One club, and it's easier to kind of attract, and so that kind of just adds to a bit of, I guess, fan and club desperation to stay in the Championship. I think in terms of like other general thoughts on us at the minute, a thing that I'm kind of seeing mentioned more amongst the fan base, but I think should kind of be more widely mentioned, to be honest. Like, I can very realistically see us, if we're still kind of 22nd, 21st-ish in and around Christmas, sacking Rowett and rolling the dice again. I think we probably, I just think we're, you know, Rowett is what, the 7th, 8th longest serving manager in the Championship right now.
Probably, yeah.
I think, you know, we, to be honest, probably at the minute are falling into another Championship merry-go-round manager club who kind of likes to roll the dice every season in terms of Championship survival. So that's a little bit of a worry. And also,
I think with half decent personnel, Rowett means comfortable safety. I
think so too. I think so too. But
yeah,
you know, I can also see the board's kind of desperation to stay in the Championship, maybe kind of like clouding their judgment a little bit, and maybe also in more sense for like League One. I mean, like League One, even since we got promoted there a season ago, I think it's changed forever, really. Like, the money that's been splashed about there now is absolutely mad. And, you know, you look at Plymouth, bless them, Plymouth Argyle, sorry, I know they prefer to be called Argyle, down there at the minute, who look like an absolute shambles. So yeah, I think that's a little bit, might be something that scares the board as well, basically.
Sure. Brilliant.
So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, are you a little bit just briefly before I bring in Ollie from Blackburn Rovers? Would you say you're a tiny bit concerned about the first two performances, or are you kind of very much a case of let's take stock at the end of the window, maybe after the first 10 games, and see where things level out at?
Yeah, no, I the thing that's caused me the most worry is that it's that old cliche at this point in the season: performances over results, even though you're in like the most ruthless results business ever at the bottom end of the Championship. But like you know, these two performances we've had, like, they're basically the same as our performances for like the last 4 months of last season, where we are essentially offering no threat from open play. It's not that bad defensively. But, you know, it's just a thing of just trying to somehow scrape through it game by game by game by game by game, seeing where you can grind out a result. And I worry that approach might take a toll on the squad and maybe damage confidence a little bit. But then, you know, I also have the confidence in Rowett to, you know, pluck a result out of nowhere too when we most need it.
Let's hope you can do that. Ollie's back. Great stuff. I was wondering if I needed to come out. Great stuff. Alfie, thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again, I'm sure, very later in the season.
No worries, guys. Have a good evening.
Top man, Alfie, thanks so much for joining us. Delighted to be joined now by Ollie, Jolly Ollie on TikTok, from Blackburn Rovers. Ollie, thank you so much for joining us. A really competitive performance against Birmingham City at the weekend. A little bit of a gut wrencher at the end for you.
Yeah, thanks for the text message off you as well. I didn't really need the personal message from you, Gab, about that. Anyway, look, we were told all week we were probably going to be taken to the sword. They're going to be on the front foot. I think everybody looked at the Ipswich games and thought, wow, Birmingham are going to be something to watch. And I think a lot of people didn't have them in sort of the top 6 this season in terms of predictions, but I could see why from maybe one game. But I think, and my after-match reaction, I think, was quite perfect, really, in terms of, I think we stifled you really well. We didn't let you play your game. I think, to Birmingham's credit, they really restricted Rovers to very limited opportunities as well. But we can take positives from the game. There's a lot more positives I can take from that as opposed to the West Brom game the week before. The creativity of players like Todd Cantwell, the electric pace of Carbo, who I do find that teams end up putting 3 or 4 players on him, but you do worry about creativity if those 2 players aren't available.
Yeah, absolutely. Sondre Tronstad, certainly in the first 3 months of last season was one of the top midfielders in the Championship. Are we seeing any signs of him getting back to that form?
I think there's a lot of uncertainty, Gab, about him going out the door at the moment.
Oh, right.
There's been a big core of the players at the squad at the moment. Lewis Travis has been well documented. Dolan's gone. Britton's gone. Dom Heim has said that he's not signed his new contract yet. So a good core of the playing squad have already either left or probably will go. Tronstad, a very stable horse at the football club. It was a massive hole in the squad once he was injured, and with no disrespects, Adam Forshaw was never going to fill that void long term. It was only a short term for that. So there is worries that he may go. Hopefully he does stay, but he has voices concerns about family time and living within the area. So I hope we do get the Sondre Tronstad of last season. Otherwise, it could be that he does leave.
In terms of the sort of setup from Blackburn Rovers, do you take some encouragement from that performance against Birmingham City and feel like that can be a template for yourselves to move forward with?
Yeah, I hope so. The manner in which we conceded the goals, it did feel like a bit of a gut wrench. We'd been taking pelters off the field all week. Wasn't the greatest performance against West Brom, but West Brom will be up there this season, so it's not that damaging of a result. Gets the Bradford game, that really should have been something we could have really got a result from, and I'm still disappointed with the squad that they put out that game. But this game, I think if we would have come away with a 1-0 victory, it would have been deserved, and I think it really would have pushed the momentum our way, considering that we've had to deal with off-field matters pretty much most of pre-season. But then just the manner in which we've conceded the goals, the penalty, the late goal by, I don't want to have to keep it, Lyndon Dykes, sorry. Then, yeah, it does really think to yourself, right, well, how are we going to, what are we going to do about, obviously, in terms of defensive, in terms of our defence, because unfortunately we do concede early goals and we have conceded late goals. And I think when you do concede a late goal, that momentum sometimes is, or that kind of, it does sort of burst your bubble going forward ever so slightly. So hopefully we can pick something up against Hull this week.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed for that. What have you made of Ali Biosu so far? Would you say he's the pick of the new recruits?
I mean, besides the fact that half our fan base can't actually pronounce his name because it took us a while to actually get to the pronunciation, I've been really impressed with him. Is he a Callum Britton? No, but he's a different aspect of kind of player. Callum Britton would say he's more of an attacking wing back, stretches his legs, gets forward, literally will take a man to the bar line. And Ryan, in simple terms, I'll call him, his defensive rate was really good. He's got electric pace, and I think that worked really well against the lads that were working down the left hand side for Birmingham. I don't think they got past him. I think the second that he got his head injury, which is a real shame, and hopefully that's not him out for a lengthy amount of time. I think Miller did struggle to come into the game and really find the pace. So yeah, I have been impressed with him, and to a degree, Miller has been impressive as well. But the giving away the penalty, especially when a guy does 3 men, hits the bar line, it is disappointing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yuki Ahashi, Ollie, I actually quite liked last season because he showed a lot of energy, didn't he? And clearly a very willing runner. Do you think he's got the potential to add those extra layers to his game this season?
I mean, he mentioned it during pre-season that he wants to make improvement. And now for a guy who's come from Japan, he's knocking on 30 and didn't really stop all last year, just really did 12 months of football. I think that's very admirable of the guy. And I do like these sort of Japanese players. They seem to come with a lot of energy. They've been brought up a lot differently from what you get with your sort of British, European type of sort of players. And I do hope he is. Against West Brom, we didn't have any creativity on the width. I mean, even against Birmingham, I think Birmingham really defended well against him. He did run the line at times, but I do hope that we do find that creativity, because unfortunately, as much as he can beat the last man, if someone's not willing to make that final ball, he is really going to struggle.
I suppose the player that you'd be looking for to play that final ball is Todd Cantwell. Scored a lovely goal against us at the weekend. Do you think he can be productive this season?
I hope so, because I think when we went on our run last year at the back end of the season, where we almost sneaked into the playoffs, I think Todd Cantwell was pivotal in that moment. We've been crying out for it all of last season, really. And yes, we got at the back end of the season, but this season, be it that the amount of players that are going out the door, like Dolan, like Britton, and potentially Travis as well, then we do need to see more from him. I mean, he is effectively the marquee signing. So I do worry if he's not in the squad, as I did against West Brom. But in the squad, we need him more than ever, personally.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So what have Blackburn Rovers got to do to sort of get their first points on the board, essentially? I mean, is it just about facing maybe better, not as strong opposition, in the sense that we're expecting West Brom and Birmingham to be two of the better teams in the Championship this season?
Well, the thing is, Gav, I think this season the Championship is more brutal than ever. So when I looked at the fixtures, do you know what? I looked at the West Brom, I thought maybe a point. I probably would have said the same with Birmingham. But Hull look like they've got a bit of something about them now. Other teams are starting to show up and come to the fourth. And I think this year, with other teams spending bigger money that have come up from League One, and other teams coming down, still having their riches, and Rovers kind of slashing their wage budget, I understand that this season may be a form of transition with a lot of players going out the door. But if we're not, but a lot of people have been saying to me, look, we've got to give these players time. You've got to give them time to bed in. But I'm sorry, Gab, after 6 games, if you ain't putting points on the board, you're going to be in real trouble. And that's my worry, unfortunately, for Rovers. Everybody keeps saying that you've got to give these players time to bed in. We're not a mid-table outfit, really. I think because of our dealings, which has been decent dealings in terms of player incomings, but the fact that players are going out, there's a bit of unrest still within the club upstairs, then we do need to find our feet as soon as possible, because then otherwise, what happens upstairs or off the pitch will overspill onto pitch.
Yeah, I think that's a real danger for Blackburn Rovers. Would you say then, Ollie, based on the first 2 games, that you're more optimistic about this season as a result of the performance against Birmingham, more pessimistic as a result of the performance against West Brom and the first 2 results, or are you kind of about the same?
I think the performance against Birmingham has given me more optimism. And the fact that we didn't start Cargbo and Cantwell wasn't available against West Brom. So I can kind of have an idea of how he's going to play. Tavares has been a decent addition. I'd like to think that maybe him and Tronstad have a form of relationship going forward on the pitch, because obviously Travis, as much as I'd love him to stay, more than likely he will be going out the door.
Yeah.
But I do worry about the next couple of weeks. I wish the transfer window would have closed the start of the season. But this is football for you. I do feel we're going to need another couple of signings, and I think that's going to come from the low market, and you've got to give a little bit of credit. I know we've done things effectively on the cheap, but Ismail went 6 new signings. We've got 6 new signings, so there's no complaints in terms of we didn't give him what he wanted. But now with people going out the door, it's an opportunity to go into the loan market and try and get somebody that's going to be another creative player. Because I generally do worry this season about our creativity.
Yeah, that's got to be a priority between now and the end of the window. Ollie, thanks so much for your insight on Blackburn Rovers, and look forward to catching up later in the season.
Yeah, yourself. Take care.
Top man, Ollie. Well, listen, thanks everybody for watching. And we'll see you again for another Championship podcast next week.